Terry, can you hear me? Yeah. John Lister, can you hear me all the way back there? Can you hear us? Yeah, good? Louder? The more you drink, the better we sound. And you're in a beer joint. Keep drinking. Hello, everyone.
Mortuary and body.
Hello, everyone.
That was like, it was so classic.
Hello.
I never took a picture of it. I should have.
Stewart. If I could have your attention. Can you all hear back there? Paul, can you hear? Paul. Obviously, Paul can't hear me. Terry, can you hear? Can't hear. Paul, can you hear?
Paul's not with us anyway.
Can you hear back there?
Yes.
Bill, you can hear? Back there, Paul? Louder? I don't know we can go any louder than that. So you're all going to need to be really, really quiet. Can you hear? Alright, so I'm basically kissing this mic. For the readers, you need to kiss this mic.
Alright, here I am.
Mike O'Neill. My name is Mary Beth Fisher. I am the Executive Director of the Rehoboth Beach Writers Guild, which I personally think is the best job in the world. I live in a beautiful place, and I spend my days doing what I love to do, which means that I spend my days writing, talking to writers, teaching writing, reading other people's writing, planning events such as this one for writers. And though I don't especially like standing up here in front of a crowd, I love the fact that this little event draws such a terrific group. The fact that you support us by giving your time, the fact that you're all here, that is the best validation for what we do that there is. So thank you. A number of people who are attending this event for the first time asked me when they RSVP'd what the format was and if there was a cover charge. Now those of you who have been here before know where this little speech is about to go. But I will tell you what I told those people. I said that there was no cover charge, but that at some point in the evening, I would ask for a donation. I also told them that this was the one part of the night that I truly disliked. It is not fun asking for money, and for me the whole evening, and probably for you too, would be a lot better if I didn't have to do this. But it's my job. The Writers Guild is a small nonprofit, and that orange bucket into which we hope you will put your donations, and Stewart is wearing orange tonight too, that orange bucket into which we hope you will put your donations is a big part of how we stay afloat. And so I ask, if at the end of the night you've had a good time, you've laughed, you've enjoyed the music, and you would like to see us continue doing these events, if you can put $5 in that orange bucket, we would be truly grateful. And if you can't, Stewart wants $10, but that's Stewart. If you can't or you don't want to put a donation in for whatever reason, that's okay too, because truly what matters is that you are all here. For those of you who are not familiar with the format, the way it works is that at the beginning of the month, I list the songs that Stewart and Amy are going to sing, and we send those songs out to everyone on our email list. Writers then sign up on a first-come, first-served basis to write something that either uses one of the song titles in their work or to write something that is in some way inspired by that song title. What they write might not have any connection whatsoever to the song. They don't have to write about the song. They just have to use that title to somehow inform the work. The only caveat is that it must be 300 words or fewer, which is not easy to do. What this means for you and me is that we have no idea what is about to happen. What you will hear could be sad writing, it could be humorous, it could be true, it could be a poem, a work of fiction. The goal here is just to be creative and play with words. For each song, I will announce the title and the artist who wrote the song. I will name our 2 readers who will read their work, and then Stewart and Amy will play the song for us. And because we really are happy that all of you are here, what better way to begin than with the song Happy Together by the Turtles. Our first reader is Phil Fretz, and he will be followed by Deb Griffin. Deb.
Can you hear me? Okay. The lyrics from Happy Today are full of me and you and me, and how happy we'll be. I've taken a little different perspective on that. This is called Reimagine Happy Together. Closer? Okay. I said the lyrics are typically you and me and you, and how happy we're going to be, but my definition of that is a little different. So it's going to be reimagining happy together. Imagine you and me and you. Are you really that crazy? A day without you, babe, the skies will still be blue. Maybe you can't see me loving nobody but you, but I can. Me and you and me. How delightful it used to be. I think about you day and night. But now, what fright. A nightmare with no end in sight. They say, no matter how you toss the dice, it has to be. Nah, I'd say that would lead to a lot more misery. Why, you ask, this change in me? I'll tell you straight. Maybe you'll flee. Our love life is hopeless. You drink like a fish. There's nothing liquid not on your list. There's no drink you won't swallow, but inside you're hollow. You snore like a dog. You scratch like a cat. Good God Almighty, is this where we're at? But wait, someone is shaking me, waking me up. You've been dreaming, dear, shrieking and screaming. Oh no, it was a nightmare. But could it be? Is it still true? Is it you and me and you?
Is this okay? You can hear me. Mary Beth says I need to speak up all the time. I love walking through a store with vintage items because inevitably I'll see something that reminds me of a fun moment, a favorite relative, or my own childhood. But nothing, and I mean nothing, takes me to another time and place like music. I feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my toes, and so the feeling goes. In February of 1967, a song called Happy Together hit the airwaves. I was 12 and in love with a much older man of 14. This became our song. The 2 guys that wrote it had pitched it to a dozen other bands before the Turtles decided to record it. Good move. It became their first and only #1 hit. I was quick to add it to my stash of 45s, which also included I'm a Believer by the Monkees, Incense and Peppermints by the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and The Letter by the Box Tops, which I've played so often I can still recite all the lyrics almost 50 years later. The boyfriend had light blue eyes, deep dimples, and a great smile. While his hair was short on the sides and back, he wore it long enough in the front to aggravate his mother. I loved it. Didn't every girl want her boyfriend to have hair like Paul McCartney or Davy Jones? Imagine me and you. I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right. Needless to say, I moved on to other boyfriends and other songs. Then one day as I was listening to the radio, I said, hey, that's my song. And I realized that music was just as important to me, myself, alone. When I hear the lyrics now, I don't just think of the boyfriend, I think of music. Imagine me and you, I do, so happy together.
Yeah. This is that song that we were first learning.
Oh boy, I have to think. Okay, so this is what I think we should do. If anyone owns stock in R.J. Reynolds Tobacco and you've seen a major plummet since January, can you all raise your glasses? It's because Stewart quit smoking. Sorry about your stock.
It's R.J. Reynolds throat lozenges. That's what I like. I learned a song with a friend of mine many years ago, back in 1981. We sang in a much higher key because back in 1981 I had smoked about 300,000 less cigarettes, and I could sing higher. But it's coming back. This is a song Amy and I started learning about 2 years ago. We got a huge fight when we first started learning it, so we weren't real happy together. So
Yeah, it was ironic, wasn't it?
just threw it out for a couple of years. And it got better. Not so fucking.
It was an ugly time.
Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight, so happy together. If I should call you up and dress to dine, and you say you belong to me, and ease my mind, imagine how the world could be so very fine, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you, and you and you, no matter how the talk of us, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. Imagine me and you, I do. I think about your day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight. So happy together, happy together, happy together.
So our next song is Ohio by Neil Young, and our readers are Diane Lane and Russ Reese. And Russ has not been here in about 4 years, so we are happy to have you back. Diane.
Okay, hello. Well, mine has nothing to do with the real song, but the word Ohio. That's where we go. Hot in Ohio. Should be fun driving the old motorhome to the roller hockey nationals. Delaware to Texas, then up to Missouri and home. Just me and the kids. 16 and 5, making memories. Sure sounded like a good idea. The AC wouldn't stay on, and heat kept blowing in, and the inside temperature hit 106 by Virginia. Truck stop guy Billy Bob said, "Yep, that's engine heat coming in, and they didn't insulate for Jack back then. Nothing you can do." We duct taped carpet over the vents, and it worked until the duct tape melted. In the Georgia mountains, we lost the brakes. Actually, the brake fluid boiled out when we burned up the transmission. But being basically a Chevy truck, it was an easy fix. All we had to do was get a new transmission. We made it to Texas and became the hot and only transportation for the entire hockey team. 11 smelly boys and all their gear for 4 days. But the games were tough, but we won. National champs. So other than the flat tire and the flash flood and the cracked battery and being towed off the interstate and witnessing an armed robbery at the 7-Eleven at 1 a.m. because traveling late at night was so much cooler, I'd say things went really well until Ohio. The Billboard read, "Area's largest RV dealer. We don't have an RV. You don't have an RV we can't fix." And I thought, oh yeah? One U-turn later, we were face to face. They weren't sure about the heat coming in, but they got the AC running, so we took off. Until we crossed the railroad track. Another U-turn, and I remember using words like "you can't" or "you won't," and some kind of reference to their billboard. This time, we crossed the railroad tracks ever so slowly, and damn, just get us home. Weeks later, I took that RV in for service, and Wayne said, "Yeah, everything's really good. Oh, by the way, you owe me $2 for this little knob I replaced. Did you notice you were driving with the heat on?" Oh my God. Did I notice? I actually feared becoming 3 dead in Ohio. I noticed for 5,000 miles and for 3 weeks. But we sure made memories.
Road trips with kids.
A couple of years ago, I did a drive around the country by myself. It was about a month. It was a lot of fun. And I've written a little story here about something that could have happened on that trip. It's called Jack-O-Lantern. An hour south of Columbus, I passed through Nelsonville, Ohio, where a billboard advertised the upcoming Halloween festival, and every storefront in town was decorated with witches, black cats, and carved pumpkins. I filled up at the gas and go, hit the head, grabbed 2 bottles of Snapple. I was looking for a bag of combos. You know, those little pretzel pieces with the cheese in the middle, I said to the clerk. She was an attractive woman with a round face, her dark hair fixed in a neat pixie cut. She seemed a little shy, didn't speak, but came from behind the counter and led me to the aisle. And I have to admit, I was struck by her surprisingly good figure and the easy way she carried herself as she moved across the room with a confident but understated grace. She squatted down and pulled 2 bags from the bottom shelf. "Nacho cheese or cheddar?" she said, then looked up at me with huge eyes and a soft, demure smile. And for just a moment, I forgot about the combos. Forgot about the life I had at home, the promises I had made. I looked down at this woman and wondered, what would it be like to live in Nelsonville, Ohio? I think she read my mind because she blushed. Her smile widened, showing her gleaming white teeth. 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. "I'll take the nacho cheese," I said.
doesn't have a goddamn thing to do with this song.
I have no
Our
idea.
song's depressing, so go back
But
to
it must be
that.
close to West Virginia.
These are good stories about things that kind of turn left. I think they're going one way. The first story, I like that. It reminded me when things can't get worse. There's a story Phyllis Diller told one time about, you know Phyllis Diller? She was talking, Phyllis has a lot of laughs, and she was talking about her husband's name's Fang. You remember Fang? So she and Fang were evidently going at it one evening, and Fang had a heart attack in her bed. She was relating the story, and she said there was nothing I could do. I was handcuffed to the bed. The hooker was tied up in the closet. If the Great Dane hadn't known how to dial the phone, he'd have died on the spot.
It also has nothing to do with the song we're about to sing.
Even less than...
Even less than the last one. Was Phyllis Diller in Ohio at the time?
Could be, I don't know. I know Washington Courthouse, Ohio, in Chillicothe. Family from it. Yeah, this is another one of those songs that I couldn't sing for a long while because I can't sing the high part. Never could. But Amy can. You're going to, you better. Got 2 minutes. It happened, it was May of 1970.
Our next song is Promised Land by Chuck Berry, and our readers are Sabatino Maglione and Paul Dyer.
Can you hear me? A little louder? Can you hear me now? Okay, buonasera a tutti. I have a short story entitled Remembering the Old Countries and the Promised Land. The deafening, dreadful sound of aircraft engines could be heard miles away. Buildings and trees shook. Domestic animals moved around restlessly, nervously, sensing the imminent danger. People fearing being buried under their demolished homes took refuge in the open fields, in panic, in terror, praying for their lives. Then the ear-splitting sound became more piercing as waves and waves and waves of B-24 long-ranger bombers, the so-called liberators, angels of death and destruction, flew over their heads in perfect flying formations. With their eyes fixed on the flying armada, people convulsed. Praying that the relatives living in the city where the bombers would deliver their cargo would still be alive. No fireworks finales was ever seen before in the faraway horizons, where the sky turned into a firing red glow. Plumes of black smoke billowed by the wind darkened the sky, illuminated only intermittently by the lightning produced by the blast of incendiary bombs. The moribund, defenseless city suffered a seemingly endless procession of 180 raids. A new word became in vogue at that time: carpet bombing, meting out punishment to the rich and poor, young and old, men and women, children, civilian and soldiers. There was no concern for collaterals. 25,000 human souls were killed. Many more were wounded, and even more unaccounted for. It was a just war, the right war, a fair war, a war whose price was worth paying. The day before that nefarious air attack, as a child I suffered an acute asthma attack. My concerned parents drove me to the city hospital. The doctors assured them that I was going to be all right. They and the hospital would do me good. It was best they returned for me the next day. Miraculously, the hospital was spared by the raids. Only one bomb was dropped on it. The bomb penetrated the roof, landed next to the window of the room in which I was staying, and did not explode. Was it the invisible hand of Providence? Was I destined to survive so that many years later I was living in the promised land? I will give a snapshot of the World War II tragic story. Thank you.
seduction, soft lighting, mood music. He lovingly applies the lubricant to my dry lips. Will he be gentle? Could this be the love I've yearned for? I've known this man for 15 minutes, and already he has me lying flat on my back in a comfy reclining chair. And what is this around my neck? A bib. I like a tidy man. Really? Then the fog begins to lift, and everything starts to make sense. The drugs, the oral probing. He's not my lover. He's my Mexican dentist. And I remembered it all. The cross-country flight from a broken promise of love. A quest to find inner peace in the solitude of the high desert. Unfortunately, this high desert was filled with casinos, and any inner peace vanished, along with my bankroll. While drowning my sorrows with gin and a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos, a rear molar crumbled, accompanied by intense pain. I called my healthcare professional. He told me I'd been canceled by my HMO. What about my PPO, I asked. They're waiting on your June, July, August, and September payments, he said. What's left to me, I wailed. There's always GM, he whispered. GM? What's that? Google Maps, he said. Find the fastest, most direct route to a third world nation, preferably one where the doctors still accept livestock as payment. Say no more, I thought, and as I pounded south towards Yuma, I channeled the words of the king, singing about the promised land. Somebody help me get out of Nevada, get me down to Mexico. There's a dentist down there who will care for me, so this hole in my jaw won't show. I tried peanut butter. It didn't shudder. Drank me some cold, cold wine. Had a T-bone steak with no toothache. Mexi molars working fine.
We sing
Mexi molars.
I told this story. This is a song from Chuck Berry. And Chuck was rightly pissed off at a lot of people in the music business for many years because back then they wouldn't play music on the radio. That was what they called back then. They called it race music, which was basically soul music, funky kind of music, and they thought it was too hot and heavy for white folks, so they wouldn't play it on the radio. So he would come out with a song and would do all right on the black radio stations, but then they would get a cover of it by Pat Boone or somebody, and really rocking out on the Chuck Berry team. And he'd get a big hit off it, and the big deal was the money, because the first time you publish a song like that, you can dictate what the royalties are if it's your song and you wrote it. But once it's been published and played, then it's a standard nickel, and that's it. So once Chuck put the song out, then Pat got a hit off it. Chuck only got a nickel. So he was less than thrilled with that. Anyway, one time when he was in prison, he got this idea to write a song, because back then, DJs could play whatever they wanted, and they played in a little different areas around. So if you wrote a song about, for example, Cincinnati, you knew darn well it was going to get airplay in Cincinnati, or New York, or whatever. So Chuck was hip to this, so he's sitting in prison, he writes this song, which I think has 7 states and 6 cities, or 6 cities and 7 states in it, and it got played all across the country. And it was the biggest hit he ever got. And he got number 2 or something on the chart, but that was why, because it could get played all across the country. So here it is.
Rehoboth Beach is not in this one.
They hadn't heard about Rehoboth, but
left my home in Norfolk, Virginia, California.
straddled that Greyhound Road into Raleigh and on across Caroline. Stopped in Charlotte, but we bypassed Rockville, and we never was a minute late. And we were 90 miles out of Atlanta by sundown, rolling out of Georgia State. Had some border trouble, turned into a struggle halfway across Alabama. And that hound broke down, left us all stranded in downtown Birmingham. Right away I bought me a through train ticket, got across Mississippi clean. And I was on that special flyer out of Birmingham, smoking into New Orleans. Someone gotta help me get out of Louisiana, just to help me get to Houston town. There's an uncle there, cares a little about me, and he won't let the poor boy down. Sure as you're born, he bought me a silk suit, he put some luggage in my hand. And I woke up high over Albuquerque on a jet to the promised land. Working on a T-bone steak, a la carte, flying over to the Golden State. When the pilot told us that in 13 minutes he would set us at the terminal gate. Swing low, cherry, come down easy, taxi to the terminal zone. Cut your engines, cool your wings, and let me make it to the telephone. Los Angeles, give me Norfolk, Virginia, Tidewater for 10:09. And tell the folks back home this is the promised land calling, and the poor boy is on the line. Tell the folks back home this is the promised land calling, and the poor boy is on the line.
So I just want to thank Dogfish Head because they are doing a fantastic job tonight. This is a big crowd and we all come at once. So thank you to the service. And I do see some people getting checks, but everybody likes to leave it once at the end. So if you're at that point, you want to start flagging your waiter or waitress down to get your check. This is, I try to remind you at this point. We have 2 more songs though. Our next song is I Only Want to Be With You by Dusty Springfield. And our readers are Judy Jones and Lisa Graff.
Well, in August 1958, a few months after high school graduation, I began work at the Sands Hotel Copa Room in Las Vegas. It was a famous showroom with top entertainers, Judy Garland, Nat King Cole, and the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin. And as my song goes, Dean had a hold on me for about a week. November 1958. Dean never asked me to go to his room, but something inside me, that being like Ava Gardner thing, led me there. At any time, I could have said, I'll go on home. And he would have said, okay. I should have gone home too, because the minute we were inside his suite, we weren't the same. We had never kissed like sweethearts. He was fumbling too. He asked, do you want to sleep in the front bedroom? I nodded yes. He walked to his room and came back with a silky pajama top. I took it, and he asked me if I was all right, and I said, yes, sure. And we hugged. Oh, I like that. I wanted him to be my boyfriend. I placed my clothes on a chair, put on the pajama top, wondering, am I really going to sleep in Dean Martin's front bedroom? I looked down the hallway towards his room. I wanted him to come sit on my bed and, maybe sing to me. In a while, he came back. I can't sleep. May I sleep with you? He asked. Yes, I said, not breathing. Staring at the ceiling, welcoming his body moving over me was a mystery. I was conscious of every sound. Light creeping down the hall, the sheet sliding off his back, his face next to mine, that he was Dean Martin. Afterwards, all quiet. He pushed tumbled hair from my eyes, stroked my face. I bit the inside of my lip so I wouldn't cry. I didn't stand a chance with him. I didn't have any idea how to be Ava Gardner.
I can't top that one. Okay, this is really, really going to be interesting because I forgot my script. And I remembered on the way here, before I turned around, that I had emailed it to myself. Oh boy. So, maybe I'll check Facebook while I'm here. What do you think? Looks like I have a message too. All right, hang on. This is, okay, I went to contacts. Pam, you're up. She's the one I called because I thought, oh God, maybe she can still print the script. Okay, the Dogfish Wireless Network is now, I'm sorry. All right, here we go. Oh, if you turn it sideways, it gets bigger. Yeah, that's what they all say. Stuart's awake back there, boy. That's what Dean Martin said, too. Okay. I'm not going to touch that line with a 10-foot pole. All right, at a free write last month, we were given a prompt. At 14 years, I blank. At 30 years, I whatever. And I wrote about my daughter, Lena. She lives in Spain, and I don't see her as often as I would like, so this is for my only daughter. I only want to be with you. At 3 years old, she asked for the keys to the car. She wanted to get the stroller out of the car so she could walk her baby brother. I handed them over, and then she came back in the house and asked, notches up or notches down? At 5 years old, the substitute bus driver greeted me by the hand to thank me because Lena knew where every kindergartner lived on the route and got them all safely home. At 17, she worked for my insurance agent, bought a used Mercedes and a cell phone, and upon graduation, left our home for Tucson and the University of Arizona, where she could wear flip-flops year-round. By graduation day, she had secured an advanced diving certificate by rendezvousing in Mexico on the weekend. At 23, she accepted a teaching position in Japan. At 24, taught the orphans from the tsunami in Phuket, Thailand. And at 27, she wed her fabulous partner, Emma, in the British Embassy. Now at age 31, they live and work in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, Spain, off the coast of Africa, where she teaches English at the American school. While I'm afraid to drive on the Beltway, it's true much, she can navigate the world. She has helped me to see the world differently, and because of her, I travel more. I've climbed a volcano, and I've been in a bat cave at night. 15 countries now to her 34. I'm proud of her, yet it is this mother's daily prayer. I only want to be with you. That made me cry, and it's probably because I can't use technology at all. I don't even text.
I learned this song many years ago, I think when it first came out. Mostly because I liked it, because there's a neat little guitar player. Which I can't play tonight because we can't play in that key. But having
See the
said,
stuff I learned when I get here?
when we started learning this song, and I was trying to do it in the key that has the, and we couldn't do it in that key, so I said, well, maybe we should do it, but by then Amy had already kind of, well, that's a great song, but what about the, we have to skip it, so I have to play it
I
down
think
here.
I learned this from Cher, and I don't think she has that part in it. Hi. Everyone has sung this song, so maybe Meatloaf. I don't know.
He's one of Dusty Springfield's wonderful early hits.
I don't know what it is that makes me love you so. I only know I never wanna let you go. 'Cause you started something, can't you see? That ever since we met you had a hold on me. It's crazy but it's true. I only wanna be with you. Doesn't matter where you go or what you do. I wanna spend each moment of the day with you. Look what has happened with just one kiss. I never knew that I could be in love like this. It's crazy, but it's true. I only wanna be with you. You stop smiling at me, ask me if I care to dance. I fell into your open arms, and I didn't stand a chance. Now listen, honey, I just wanna be beside you everywhere. As long as we're together, honey, I don't care. 'Cause you started something, can't you see? That ever since we met you had a hold on me. It's crazy, but it's true. I only wanna be with you. You stop, smile at me, ask me if I care to dance. I fell into your open arms, I didn't stand a chance. Now listen, honey, I just wanna be beside you everywhere. As long as we're together, honey, I don't care. 'Cause you started something, can't you see? That ever since we met you had a hold on me. It's crazy, but it's true. I only wanna be with you. No matter what you do, I only wanna be with you. No matter what you do, I only wanna be with you.
our last song is The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel, and our readers are Judy Catterton and Tom Poyer. Judy.
It was just a small article on page A16 in the Washington Post, but I cried when I read it. The great Muhammad Ali was failing, it said. His speech was slurred and interrupted by long pauses. In a picture accompanying the article, his eyes drooped. No more butterfly, no more bee. He was beautiful once, his body perfect. His face, as he so often bragged, unscarred, flawless. His oversized ego never seemed unbecoming to me. It was all show. There was no meanness there. He was just having fun with us. Besides, he was the champ. He was the greatest. I never watched boxing before, nor have I since. Only he caught my eye. Not a flat-footed brawler. He was dance and grace and spirit. He changed boxing, they say. I don't know. I do know that boxing changed him. Parkinson's disease, they say, and not the blows to the head, maybe. Ken saw him at O'Hare Airport once. I was in Chicago for a seminar. Ken joined me there for the weekend. Coming in my hotel room, Ken said, "Touch my hand." I just shook hands with the champ. And I'm never going to wash. Ali's hand was huge, completely enveloping his, Ken said. And the man himself was larger than life. Big-bodied, big-eyed, big-voiced, as he and his entourage boomed their way through the airport. We too were young then, strong, full of piss and vinegar, promise and invention. We were in the before all the bad shit happened, before my own father was hobbled by Parkinson's disease, before, like Ali, my father's speech became jumbled and his quick mind slipped. The interview ended abruptly because the great Ali was embarrassed. His hands shook, and he begged the reporter to turn off the tape. His voice was slow and halting, and he spoke in almost a whisper. "I'm sorry," he said.
Well, you know what they say, they save the last for the end. I know, I minored in philosophy. Paul Simon's music is a lot like Mozart's. It's full of exuberance, easy beauty, and seemingly effortlessly textured arrangements. You can listen happily without ever wondering what the songs mean, even though when you choose to pay attention, the meaning is clear enough. The Boxer reminds me of Mozart, and also, as you might by now guess, my father. 60 years ago, Dad was fond of quoting Hobbes's famous line about our life here on earth being solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. He trotted the line out regularly as a way of reminding us that whichever of life's vicissitudes we were experiencing were just par for the course, nothing special. Acting out a little was okay. A few choruses of "Why Me, Lord" were acceptable. But then you move on. I encountered the Boxer 45 years ago. I had been drafted and sent to Fort Lewes, Washington, where I was due in charge of quarters duty at night. in the battalion's headquarters building, which was equipped with a record player. I discovered Simon and Garfunkel courtesy of a guy who had used their songs as prayers when he was in Vietnam. He snagged their new single, The Boxer, the moment it was released. I identified with the story of an adventurous lad going off to seek his destiny, taking a shellacking at every turn, crying out in defeat and despair, but ultimately remaining, hanging in there. Made me feel almost Promethean. Eventually, though, I heard Paul Simon sing the song in a concert and heard his final verse, the one not contained in the original recording. Now the years are rolling by me, they're rocking evenly. I'm older than I once was and younger than I'll be. It's not unusual, no, it isn't strange. After changes upon changes, we are more or less the same. After changes, we are more or less the same. Dad was right. It's just the way life goes. Nothing Promethean about it.
So, when I was a kid learning to play guitar, and these guys came out, I could not play. It was impossible. A, they knew how to sing, which I didn't, and they played all this funny stuff on guitar, which I'd never heard of, with fingerpicks. Which I've since learned how to do, but I didn't know what they were doing, and I thought there was like 80 or 90 guitars in the studio. Anyway, this song I always loved to listen to, just because of the chorus, which I come to find out reading about Paul Simon, that really means nothing. He just didn't have any words to write, so he did the lie, lie, lie thing, which he just stuck in there and left it, which happens a lot in the studio. Back then, going to the studio, turns out this one, they had about 100 hours of recording in it. They recorded in the studio, they recorded in a couple of different cathedrals, they recorded some parts of it outdoors, they recorded all over the place to get the sound they wanted. Anyway, and there's also a lot of stuff with the lie, lie, lie that somehow people have read all this stuff into it that somehow has some deep meaning. No deep meaning at all, it's just something, it's like, da, 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 lie, 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 that's all it is. It's a great tune, and we finally learned it. So.
I am just a poor boy, though my story's seldom told. I have squandered my resistance for a pocket full of mumbles, such are promises. All lies and jests, still a man hears what he wants to hear, disregards the rest. When I left my home and my family, I was no more than a boy in the company of strangers, in the quiet of the railway station, the running stair. Laying low, sneaking out the poorer quarters, where the ragged people go, looking for the places only they would know. Lie, lie, lie. La 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 la. Seeking only workmen's wages, I come looking for a job, but I get no offers. Just to come on from the hose on 7th Avenue. I do declare there were times when I was so lonesome, I took some comfort there. I'm laying out my winter clothes, wishing I was gone, going home, where the New York City winters aren't bleeding me, bleeding me. Going home. In the clearing stands a boxer and a fighter by a string, and he carries the reminder of every love that's laid him out or nothing till he cried out. In his anger and his shame, I am leaving, I am leaving, but the fighter still remains.
Do one more. We need an encore, right? So while they think about what they're going to sing for that last song, I want to tell you that I sit with Stewart once these readings are over, and he goes back and forth over his list of songs, trying to find the right mix of songs for tonight, which I really appreciate. I know he and Amy spend hours every week practicing, and then they're here. So I thank you both very much. One more song.
Y'all remember this note?
That's my note.
When Amy gets to the place where her mouth opens but nothing comes out, that's what's...
Because I learned this yesterday.
That's the song.
It's not a big part. It's
This is a tune about one of those stories in life where, again, you're going on one path and you think it's really the answer, but it isn't. But it looked really good when you started. I was married one time like that. It was that 42-day marriage I spoke of.
They took bets at his wedding.
Yeah, they did. Well, my brother actually had a little pool where you put $5 in and write down how long it's going to last. He won. It was one of those things where it just, and I got to be equal opportunity here. I mean, guys tend to get hoodwinked sometimes, or women get hoodwinked as well. Not as often. Have you ever heard that phrase, you can't fool all the people all the time? The reason you can't fool all the people all the time is because half the people are women. Anyway, I got fooled, and this particular marriage cost me a fair amount of money to get into it and a shitload more to get out. My brother, bless his heart, my older brother was always one for facts and figures, so he did a little toting up on it. He said, by the way, how was your sex life? I said, well, you know, it was kind of a whirlwind romance. We only got like a couple months and it only lasted 42 days. It was like 100 days altogether. I said, you know, how good could it be? Besides, I was drunk half the time. He said, well, you know, given that you were passed out for half the time and how much money it cost, you worked out about $2,000 for every roll in the hay. Thanks for pointing it out. He said, yeah, you could have hired a professional and got chained. That's true. Talk to my brother next time. I thank you kindly for pointing that out.
There's relevance to this whole story, promise.
This is a song about a guy that he thinks it's going to go one way and it doesn't. I seen those bright lights in Memphis and the Commodore Hotel, and underneath the street lamp I met a Southern belle. Lord, she took me down to the river, and there she cast her spell. And in that southern moonlight she sang the song so well. If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland, yeah, yeah. Now we hit all the hot spots, a lot of honey flowed like wine, till that evil southern whiskey began to fog my mind. Oh, and I don't remember church bells, or the money I put down, or a white picket fence in the boardwalk, or that house at the edge of town. Oh, but boy, do I remember the sound of the refrain, and the nights we spent together, and the way she called my name. If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. It's been a year since you ran away. I guess that guitar player sure could play. She always liked to sing along, and he was handy with the song. Oh, but then one night in the lobby of the Commodore Hotel, I chanced to meet a bartender. He said he knew her well, and as he handed me a drink, he began to hum a song, and all the boys there in the bar began to sing along. If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland, yeah, yeah.
To thanking Stewart and Amy, I also want to thank all of our writers, because they get up here and they make it look easy, but they have spent a lot of time and a lot of practice to make it look that way. And so I thank all of the writers tonight. Thank you. I want to remind you of the orange bucket on your way out. And I also want to tell you, if we could stay at Dogfish forever, we would, but it doesn't work in the summer. And so we are always doing the Night of Song and Stories on the third Tuesday of the month. But we will be at Anabella's in Lewes for the summer. We'll be back at Dogfish in September. Keep visiting Dogfish all summer, but please come and join us at Anabella's starting in June. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here.